Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me. I'm Flora, speaking out. Wish I could meet each one of you personally and share thoughts face to face. Yeah, my thoughts this week have been going back 84 years to 1942. We had been at war for almost 6 months, and our class in school decided to put on a patriotic play. Our high school was a small one, which combined all 6 grades from the 7th to the 12th, which was good for us. We meet 11, 12-year-olds, knowing our place, looking with awe at those lordly 17 and 18-year-olds, trying to imitate them in every possible way. And we 17, 18-year-olds looking with indulgent protectiveness at those little wide-eyed scampering 11, 12-year-olds. That is, when we bothered to notice them at all, of course. Well, anyway, every Friday, our high school had an hour of what was called auditorium, and it was required attendance. We all went, all the classes seated according to class would line up and march into the auditorium, which had a stage and an orchestra pit and all the rest of it. And there we would, various things, school announcements, sometimes a lecture of a well-known person, sometimes an orchestra or choral music given to us, or skits or plays, that kind of thing. And our class that month decided to put on a play of segments of American history. My best friend Susie was quite tall, was given the role of Uncle Sam, which was to conclude the skits. Dressed properly in stripes and stars, she told me later, though, that the glue fastening her beard and mustache was such a sickening odor she nearly fainted on the stage. Well, I skipped the glue, but they did give me a speaking role. I was the wife of a noted American. And as I walked on the stage, trying not to trip on my long skirt of the 1812, 1814, I stood on the stage and announced, "I am Mrs. Francis Scott Key, and I've just received a letter from my husband," and was a little surprised at the slight ripple of laughter that went over the audience. Anyway, I went on to read this letter. I hadn't written the letter. I think my history teacher had written it for me. But it was a letter from my husband, Francis Scott Key, who was a lawyer in Baltimore. And it was during the War of 1812, and he had gone on one of the British warships to negotiate for the release of an American captive there. And while he was on the ship, all the English warships began to bombard Fort McHenry in Baltimore there. And the bombardment took 25 hours. And he was not allowed, of course, to go on shore while this was going on. All those rockets, flares, bullets, everything going on, bombs. But he stayed on the boat looking out of the window, I imagine with those prisoners he'd come to negotiate about. And as the sun went down, they saw the flag still flying, stars and stripes over the fort. Then the dark night fell, and the only way they could see the flag was through the rockets' red glare and the bombs bursting in air, which gave proof to the night that the flag was still there. But there was a great uncertainty. Could it last the night? And then in the morning, he saw the flag, and he wrote this poem, which he sent to his wife, on the back of a letter that he had in his pocket, beginning, "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?" Well, you can finish it. Apparently, he did send a poem first to his wife. I've always remembered that skit our class put on. I thought about it through the years. I don't think any of us children realized how long the night was going to be of the Second World War. More than 3 more years to go. So much tragedy, so much death, so much suffering, so much call for courage. Courage, brave hearts in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. Of sorts, right at this time. Not an outside attacking enemy, but an enemy within the gates, which is much worse in some ways. An evil president, an evil cabinet, a majority in the legislative branch. All who claim to love that flag, who sing that song, and violate for. February, I have faced two of the things I'm feeling reluctant about. Well, one of them is this is the month I always work on my income tax. And we all, of course, feel a little reluctance when that time comes. But I also felt a deeper reluctance this time. What is my money being used for? To feed the poor? To give aid to the sick and disabled? To fund the science and medical research of which we've been so proud? Money to keep on leading the world in ecological climate control? No, those things have been pulled back, some of them lopped off at the head. Being helped to pay billions to ICE, the ICE agents. Being used to pay cabinet members, cruel without compassion. This very week, this past week, the government rescinded agreed on in 2009 that carbon greenhouse gases are bad for our health and very, very dangerously bad for the world climate. We're already seeing changes in that climate in my time. And for a while, our nation was helping to lead the world to stop this, stop the destruction of our atmosphere. This means rolling back the environmental regulations, trying to get back to those days that I remember so well, 70, 80, 90 years ago, filthy black air over the big cities and the filth in the Great Lakes. I still remember what Lake Erie looked like back in 1940. All right, there's another reluctance I've been feeling, which is a rather strange one. This has been the week of the Olympic Games. And I usually love the Winter Olympic Games and watch them. This time I have felt, at least for a while, a kind of shame now stands for in the eyes of the world. The scorn. I felt this shame until I read what some of the very brave athletes had to say about it, what courage it took. One of the young skiers said, and I'm reading his words here, as a country, we need to focus on respecting everybody's rights and making sure we treat our citizens as well as everybody with love and respect. And I hope when people look at us athletes competing at these Olympics, they realize that's the America we're trying to represent. What courage that took for this brave young skier to say that, for the world to hear. Another young woman athlete said, "This is something I will not be quiet about. I'm going to keep speaking my truth and to stay strong in these hard times." There were several who spoke out this way, these brave American skiers, skaters. And of course, Trump said they are losers, they shouldn't be in the teams anymore. And they've received hate mail, but they represent truly land of the free, the home of the brave. So then I lost my shame. I felt proud of the real America being shown not only by those athletes, but the street protests in Minneapolis and so many other cities, the strength of the federal courts. These are proofs through the night that the flag is still there. They hold a vision, which is the true America. They hold a vision. It's not easy to hold a vision, is it? Often we go back to sleep after seeing the vision or slide back. Looking up the details of Francis Scott Key, I learned to my dismay that he himself was a slaveholder. The man who wrote our national anthem was a slaveholder. He had not yet realized, along with so many other patriots at that time, including those who wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, who were also some of them slave owners, they didn't yet wake up to the full implications of the vision they were given. They weren't seeing the full scope of what it meant. I think often we don't. Like, say, a marriage pledge. We don't realize till the years go on all that really means when we promise to another person better for worse, sickness and health, richer or poorer. We wake up to the full implications of our visions just bit by bit. And then often, even after we've seen, we doze back asleep. And it's hard to forgive that in ourselves or others when we doze back to sleep and lose the scope of the vision that we've had. Nevertheless, the flag is still there. The vision is still there. In fact, in this night we are in, this dark night we're going through for another 3 years, perhaps it's by the very light of the rocket's red glare that we see who the true patriots are. The men and women standing firm and strong, no matter how much the rocket is glaring and the bombs are roaring. They stand firm. You know, this is the week, well, this weekend anyway, we celebrate Valentine's Day. And to refresh my memory, I looked up just who St. Valentine was. He was a Roman Christian bishop who lived around the same time as St. Nicholas and St. Lucia that I talked about a couple of months ago. His name was Valentinius, and he, along with his other tasks as a bishop and priest, he often married young couples, young Christian couples who were under the ban of the government, not allowed to marry. He married them in secret. And they tell another beautiful story about him. That when he was put in prison waiting for martyrdom, he became friends with the young daughter of his jailer. And those prisons were ghastly at that time. The jailers were brutal. But this young girl who was blind brought him food, comforted him, sang to him, and he who had the healing gift laid hands on her eyes and her vision was restored. And sometimes in gratitude, after vision was restored, he'd read her little notes signing, "This from your Valentine," from which, of course, we got the tradition of sometimes sending each other cards and love notes. But as I was thinking, as we celebrate him and the ones we love this weekend, let's also resist the one who would be emperor and tyrant over us. And even more, let us help one another restore our full eyesight, our full vision of what it means to be in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you for being with me. See you next week.